So this week we learned about TDD and BDD, which is test-driven development and behavior-driven development. So our task for this week was to create a module called Elevator Media, a class streamer, and have the the get content method that would return, different data depending on which parameter we give, and that data had to be formatted into a string that could be placed inside of a HTML page, basically. So here I have my method that returns different content depending on which argument we pass in. This is the method that formats any data into a string that is like encapsulated between two divs. Here we have a method that returns a little embed game. It's like a racing game. This is a chart of Cardano ADA, and this is a method that returns a random quote, basically. So um, this is the test file itself. So I have here the required elevator media, meaning I am requiring inside of that file the file that contains my module and class. Here I have an instance of the game inside of a variable and the ADA chart, and also the method that formats any data that you put in to be able to compare with what we have in the module itself and on the test. This is basically a regex pattern that I am using down there to be able to say, well, if the content that I get has the div inside of the string, then it'll pass the test, meaning the data has been correctly formatted on the other side and returned correctly on the test side. So here I have the get content test. This is the test that will return the HTML game. So essentially, the expects that the get content with the attribute game to equal the same format of the test game. So basically, if we format this into this, it should return the same thing. It should be equal to the same thing that we get there. It's essentially the same for the Cardano chart. And here for the random quote, here I have it say that it returns the HTML quote. It expects that the get content quote method will match the div regex. After applying the TDD to the elevator media module and streamer class, we also had to apply some tests to three different parts of our code that we already did beforehand. So here I have a little test on my user model. So essentially, I am instantiating a new user with an email and a password, and it's testing that my user will be valid if the user email is not nil. Essentially, if I ever happen to have a user without a password or an email, it won't pass the test. Here we have a test on my quote controller. So it's pretty simple. It'll check for the HTTP response status. So once I create a quote, it expects that the response status equals 200. 200 meaning the status is okay. There are no errors. It then passes the test. If the status is 200, we know for sure that the response got to the right place. Then I did a routing test on my lead. So essentially, this test will validate that the routing when a user creates a lead. So this test expects that the post method will route to the leads hashtag create. Essentially, if I post my lead, I am expecting to create a new lead if the route is not properly established inside of my config in my project, then for sure it won't pass this test.